Hi guys, this is Lalana. Thanks for tuning into the Sovereign Path. So today we are going to expand upon the video that I released a few days ago titled When You No Longer Desire the Twin. So that video, if you haven't watched it, you're welcome to watch it, got a tremendous amount of attention. And most of that attention being, very resonant and aligned and all of those sort of things. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for all of you who are now subscribed to my channel. I appreciate you, and I'm very humbled as well. But there are also several comments and emails and questions that I received based on that video around kind of more panic, I guess, a little bit in regard to what do you mean we are no longer going to desire the twin, we're not going to be attracted to the twin anymore. That sounds super boring, similar to some of the videos that I've made in the past that are around thinking that neutrality is boring or oneness is boring and things of that nature. And so there was a lot of that sort of came up, and so I just wanted to address that in this video and expand a little bit about what we're actually talking about when we're saying that we're moving out of that desire for the twin. And so what we're really saying, and I may repeat a few things that were in that video as well, so I apologize for that. But we are moving out in this experience, in the twin flame dynamic. This experience is a spiritual awakening. This is your ascension. That is the purpose of this path. That is the reason that you have incarnate with your same soul to assist you through the awakening process. But this is still an awakening process. Some people go through an awakening process on their own. Other people go through an awakening process with their same soul, who is the twin flame. But it's all awakening. It's all a spiritual awakening, and it's all ascension. There are just different avenues to this depending on where your soul is at for its own growth and expansion and learning and all of these things in this physical third dimensional reality. So that being said, when we are going through the ascension process, we're going through a spiritual awakening. This is an evolution of the soul. So this evolution of the soul is coming out of the low vibratory states of the third dimensional separation consciousness reality that we have been experiencing for lifetimes, and that has served us well for lifetimes as well, potentially. The soul has been experiencing what it has need to experience, to learn from, to grow from, to expand from, in that separation state, right? In that lower vibratory third dimensional state. The 3D vibrates at a very slow pace. It is a lower vibratory state than you are as an energetic soul. As a soul, you vibrate at a much higher frequency and a much higher dimension. Souls descend into the third dimensional reality to have an experience for its expansion, but not to stay here, right? So I think I kind of need to make that clear, because a lot of times when I'm talking about shifting out of the 3D or shifting out of the 3D experience, which I'm going to release a video on that as well, we get a lot of that sort of panic within, a little bit of that pushback. The mind starts telling stories and doing its thing. The ego starts sort of freaking out and all of these things. And we sort of feel like, okay, wait, what does that mean? Because this is the physical reality. And so now I'm experiencing some other reality. It's that you're experiencing a higher vibratory state and you are shifting into a higher frequency, which has always been you. This is the reason that the ego and the mind panics, because the ego and the mind don't have a remembrance or a resonance or an alignment with unity consciousness, right? With pure consciousness, with all of these things, because the ego and the mind structures are based on separation consciousness. So it's not one is wrong and one is right. It's just the process of evolution is shifting us out of these lower vibratory states. So desire is a lower vibratory state, as I stated in that video as well. So is envy, hate, anger, you know, all of these things are lower vibratory states, which are based on fear-based energies, right? Energies that are coming from a dualistic state. So if we look at the Hawkins scale of consciousness, we will see that there are lower vibratory states, there are mid-vibratory states, there are high vibratory states. We can call those levels of consciousness, frequency, whichever verbiage you feel comfortable with. So the ascension path is about shifting out of that lower vibratory scale and shifting up into the remembrance, basically into the truth of who you have always been. So as I've said in a lot of videos, this isn't something that you have to like do necessarily, right? Ascension is releasing what is no longer serving you, basically, right? That's what ascension is. But we hold so tight to all of these belief systems because that's what we've been experiencing for so long that we freak out when, you know, we say certain things or we have, you know, certain belief systems that now are being like, you know, the ego or the mind structure or the emotional body feels like it's being confronted in some way based on the things that it's been identifying with. And desire is one of those things, and feeling like if I'm not attracted to the twin, if I'm not passionate about the twin, you know, if I don't desire them anymore, you know, in an intimate way, then what exactly is going on here? Because I thought that this was my, you know, my same soul, my other self, my best romantic partner ever, all of these things that we hear along this path. So the thing is that moving out of these lower vibratory states is moving out of desire. But I need to make this super clear. You're moving out of the separation state of fear-based energy. We can't take fear-based energy with us into unity consciousness because it simply doesn't exist there, right? That's why it's called unity, and this is called separation, right? These are not the same frequencies. They're not the same vibration, and they're ultimately not the same experience that you will have in the physical reality once you have shifted out of the 3D and into the 5D. So just like that has these two different frequencies, one is separation and fear-based, one is union and oneness, the interaction that you have within self, right, will also reflect the interaction that you have with other, not only just with the twin, but with other people in general, right? Once you come into inner union, you have shifted into a fifth dimensional frequency of unity consciousness. So the desire that you have been experiencing in your other relationships, romantic partnerships in the past, was based on that third dimensional program of fear-based energy, right? Hot, cold, up, down, in, out, break up, get back together, super passionate, lust, you know, all of these things that we associate in this reality as, you know, being really into somebody, being really in love with somebody, you know, really like desiring someone or wanting someone or yearning for someone and all of these things. This is what we have come to feel is normal, because it is normal in the 3D. And there's nothing wrong with having those experiences. But those are experiences that you will not be able to take with you as you go through the ascension process, right? You're not going to be able to take them with you because, as I said, these are two different frequencies, right? These are two different frequencies, and you're shifting out of one and into another. And so it isn't as though now you're not attracted to the twin flame once you're in inner union. It isn't like now that you want nothing to do with them and, you know, you just don't, you know, you don't care at all. They're like, you know, it's not that. It's that once you have come into union within, you have shifted out of the base sort of mechanical isn't not the right word, so scratch that. Sort of the animalistic, you know, lower base chakra systems, fear-based chakra systems that intimacy and sex run on in the 3D. Hopefully that makes sense, right? That is what this program is. That's what these lower chakras hold. This is why clearing out these lower chakras is so important. It's why doing sacral chakra work is very important on the awakening path. Once you shift up to the fifth dimensional frequency of unity consciousness, now you are experiencing and have shifted into the embodiment of sacred sexuality. So I'm going to do some videos on this, potentially some sort of series on this. I may include, some sacred sexuality in my master twin flame course that I'm going to release soon. We'll see, but this is a subject that we don't really understand, resonate, or align with until we have shifted into that inner union, until we are at that higher vibratory state, which if you are on a twin flame path, you will eventually reach, because that means you're going through ascension, right? And so I just want to make this video, it doesn't even need to be long, just for some of you who are kind of panicked a little bit around what this means in regard to having that not desiring sort of thing, right? It doesn't mean what you think it means. It means that the interaction that you will have with the twin once you have come into inner union is elevated, it's heightened. And this whole thing that you've been experiencing, it will pale in comparison to what you will experience with the twin, with a high vibrational soulmate, with other, in regard to being anchored in that fifth dimensional frequency, right, of inner union and unity consciousness. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that resonates a little bit more with some people. The thing is that this is what ascension is. It's what the evolution of the soul is. It's coming back into that oneness state. And I saw a couple other comments, I guess I'll address really quick. Oneness isn't boring, neutrality isn't boring. I did several videos on inner union and a few on neutrality if you guys want to watch those. But we have the idea, like the mind translates this, like neutrality and oneness and peace, and that's really boring. And I used to think that was too, especially when I started to feel into the void stage. I have a video on that, neutrality versus the void. And it was just kind of like a flatlined state. And then I started to move into neutrality, and I was just like, this is but that's not where this thing ends, right? That's not where you're headed. These are just stages that we go through in order to shed the layers of the onion off, right? And so coming into these places of neutrality, coming into these places of oneness and balance within, and all of these things that I'm always talking about, is coming into a higher state of vibration, a higher state of consciousness, a higher state of frequency. And that state of frequency has a much more loving interaction with other, because we're not viewing anymore everyone as separate from us, because we're not running that separation program anymore. And so when we're in that place of desire and yearning and want for the twin, that's a chasing energy. It's a fear-based, addictive energy that is basically wanting to have that other person make us feel better or validate us, and all of those things that come along with that fear-based energy when we're going through this entire path, right? Until we finally break through that ceiling. But coming into inner union, there is no more of that, right? There is no more chasing energy. There is no more yearning. There is no more hoping and pining and all the crazy thoughts and the obsessiveness and the addictive energy and all of that stuff that in truth, when we really sit back, makes us feel like absolute shit. That's why we watch these videos. That's why we take courses. That's why we do coaching. That's why we're trying to figure out how to navigate this path. Because in truth, the things that we are thinking are, normal in regard to romantic connection, because that's what we've experienced, are also the things that generally make us not feel so great once we've stepped on this path. And the reason that those things keep coming up for you and for all of us is because the soul is saying, you need to let this go. This is fear-based energy. That's why it keeps showing up for you. That's why this feels addictive. That's why this feels obsessive. That's why you keep getting triggered. That's why all of these things keep pushing up. And the soul is the one doing this through the divine masculine. The soul is the one that knows how much you can take. The soul is the one who knows how many triggers you can handle and exactly what those triggers are. And so it's your soul that's doing this, and we think it's the masculine. I've talked about this a lot. We think it's the masculine that is, to blame and all of these sort of things. But in truth, it's just the soul moving through the physical aspect of the masculine in order to trigger all of these things. The soul also does this energetically if you're not in physical interaction with the twin. But the thing is that this is your soul doing this. And I don't know how many times I can really try to push that or drive that home. But it's such a game changer on this path for us to really understand it's not the divine masculine who's doing these things, right? It looks like it is because that is the aspect that can reach you the closest, the quickest, right? The most in your face so that you actually can't avoid it and duck and weave it. But it's your soul that's orchestrating this. It's actually your soul, your own soul that's triggering you, right? It is literally the highest vibration of you that is moving through that masculine that is saying, stop running after me, you're running after yourself. Stop yearning for me, you're yearning for yourself. Stop looking for me, I'm right here within you, right? Stop desiring me, the desire that you're looking for is your own. Because the thing is that the twin is you. The twin is your exact same energetic frequency, right? You share a consciousness, you share a soul. So when you're desiring the twin, you are separating self from self because you're still seeing the twin as separate from you. And when I'm talking about desire, I'm talking about the third dimensional construct of that separation, lower vibratory, fear-based energy state. And so the twin is the one that's saying, break through this ceiling, and I'm going to continue to trigger you because I know where all your triggers are so that we can break free from this, right? And so hopefully that makes sense. And, we can start resonating with what's actually happening because when you come into inner union, then you've collapsed the duality within, right? There is no polarization. You understand, you embody, right? You're back into oneness, that you are one with the twin, that they are your same soul. And this is no longer a mental construct. It's actually a knowing. It's a higher knowing. It's an awareness. It's an actual frequency that you now embody. So being with the twin is, like I say, it's at a heightened state of energy because you've collapsed all of that polarization and all of those dualistic states and fear-based energy that you've been running, desire being one of them. And so now you are experiencing that heightened state of sacred sexuality with the twin. And this whole thing is a game changer, right? This is next level. And it's not something that you can put into words or describe. It's something that you experience. This whole path is experiential. And so I do my best to put things in words and to try to demystify this path for you guys because I think it is extremely helpful if we demystify this thing and actually understand what's going on energetically, because this is an energetic process. That this whole thing is energy. Your energy, every single thing you see is energy. And so the more that we can get a handle on that, right, and stop allowing the mind to be constantly, in the forefront of trying to think that it has this thing completely figured out, the more that we back off from that and we start to surrender to the fact that this is your soul's path and your soul is guiding it and your soul is the one who's actually triggering you through this whole thing, right? Then we can start to really get a handle on, okay, I can surrender and I can back into this and I don't have to panic when Lalana says, what do you mean I'm not going to desire my twin anymore? It means you're going to shift into sacred sexuality, and that's a game changer. It's not going to be anything like what you've been dabbling with in your other situations, right? So hopefully that resonates, you guys. I just wanted to kind of bring that to the surface a little because I feel like some people, were a little bit panicky and get a little bit confused, which is completely understandable. That's just your fear-based energy sort of freaking out and wanting to kind of, hold on and navigate things and whatever else, which is a completely normal aspect of this path. So again, Thank you so much to all my new subscribers. I really appreciate you guys. You have an awesome day.